Welcome to Audit the Audit, where we sort out the who and what and the right and wrong of police interactions. This episode covers vehicle searches, excessive force, and resisting, and is brought to us by Lackluster.
Yeah, Offstream watch. I'll watch it. We'll
give them the credit that
I'll watch it tonight.
Before we dive into the interaction, I want to give a big thanks to the sponsor of this episode, Morgan & Morgan. In December of 2022, there were over 284 million vehicles operating across the country, and in 2020 alone, there were over 5 million car accidents in the U.S., with over 1.5 million of those accidents resulting in injuries, and over 3.6 million resulting in property damage. This means that the average driver in the U.S. will experience 3 to 4 car accidents in their lifetime. Many of these accidents will involve insurance claims, lawsuits, and tons of paperwork. Luckily, Morgan & Morgan is here to help in these difficult situations. Not only is Morgan & Morgan America's largest injury law firm with over 900 attorneys operating in over 100 offices across the entire country.
Like, if I wanted to watch, like, something on that topic that was serious, you would expect something like this, you know what I mean?
The simplest and most intuitive way to seek the compensation you deserve. Many people have the impression that hiring an attorney is a daunting task full of endless paperwork, meetings, and research. But the legal experts at Morgan & Morgan have modernized the injury law process, so you can submit a claim and communicate with your legal team all from your phone. With Morgan & Morgan, there's no need for you to visit law offices and sit through long consultations. You can submit a claim and have a lawyer review your case with only 8 clicks on your phone. And the best part is, you only pay if they win. There are no upfront costs, sign-up fees, or hidden invoices. If they don't win your case, you pay nothing. Over 3 million people trust Morgan & Morgan to help in their time of need every year. And with over 4,000 support staff available at any hour to help with your case, you can submit a claim anytime. If you're ever injured in an accident, you can submit a claim at www.forthepeople.com/audittheaudit or by dialing #LAW. That's #529 on your phone. Thanks again to Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring today's episode. In the late evening of December 3rd, 2021, Officer Teddy Dyer, Officer Candace Miller, and Sergeant David Myrick of the East Ridge Police Department in Tennessee responded to a call for a well child check at the residence of Haley Sherrard. When they arrived at the home, they found Haley's mother, Angel Sherrard, along with her son, Devin, in a vehicle in front of the house. Officer Dyer approached the vehicle from the right passenger side, and the encounter that followed was captured on his body camera.
Hello.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, do you live here?
My daughter's living here.
Is she? In this, is that 893?
Yeah, it is.
All right, hang on 1 second for me, okay?
Something wrong?
Well, we got called to check on a child.
What child?
I don't know. They didn't tell us. They just said do a welfare check.
From
Wait, what?
when? Like, what did they say?
I don't know. We'll go up and knock. Is that your daughter coming now?
Yeah.
What's her name? Hey, going up to the door.
Well, how old's the child?
2 years old? Is there a 2-year-old that lives here? Okay.
I bet it was,
4 Mike 3, 7 Golf 4.
Why are you running my tag?
Because I smell marijuana.
You smell marijuana?
Yes.
Because you smell marijuana, that gives you the right to run my tag?
Not only that, I'm going to search your car.
You're not going to search
Wait,
anything.
haven't
Yes,
I?
No,
Chad,
you're
didn't
not.
we see this already? Did we see this already, or am I tripping? I think I may have seen it from someone else's
I promise
POV.
You are not going to break
Not
my
only-
rights right now.
You're about to get your rights up in the back of my car.
So the tag can be run at any time.
Well, that's what you want to do because
51
you're going to get in real
67
big when you do. Because I haven't done anything. I haven't
51 to
violated any
479.
rule or anything. You just sit there and talk to me and to
Now
tell
that-
me you're going to search my car.
I am going to search your car.
And you're running my tag.
I am going to
I'm not
search your
doing
car.
anything but sitting out here waiting for
I
my
don't
daughter
care.
to come back
I
out.
don't care. Your car's going to be searched. And if you interfere with my search, I will put you in the car and I will
Okay,
take you to
you go
jail.
ahead.
That's
you violate my
unnecessary
rights then.
escalation.
Okay, put
Let's
your
do
hands on the
that.
car.
You violate my rights.
Put your hands on the car.
Officer Dyer claims he is going to run the vehicle's tags and search it because he smells marijuana. Tennessee is one of the minority of states that, as of the date of writing this episode, have not legalized or decriminalized either recreational or medical marijuana, although the state has legalized hemp and CBD oil. Accordingly, in the 1976 case of State versus Hughes, the Supreme Court of Tennessee held held that the odor of marijuana coming from a vehicle constitutes probable cause to believe that the vehicle contains contraband marijuana. In the 2022 case of State versus Hampton, the Court of Criminal Appeals of Tennessee rejected an argument that with the legalization of hemp, the quote-unquote plain smell of marijuana no longer established probable cause for a warrantless vehicle search, as the smell of marijuana is indistinguishable from the smell of hemp, concluding that, now quoting, "Until our Supreme Court or our legislature determines otherwise, the smell of marijuana continues to establish probable cause for the warrantless search of an automobile. Accordingly, if a court believed Officer Dyer's assertion that he smelled marijuana, it is highly likely that it would determine he had the probable cause necessary to search Ms. Sherrard's vehicle." Now, as to the constitutionality of running Ms. Sherrard's tags, courts have consistently concluded that officers do not violate the Fourth Amendment by searching for an individual's license plate in
public
a police
record
database, even when they do not have any reason to suspect any sort of criminality. As the Supreme Court explained in the 1986 case of New York versus Class, quote, "A citizen does not surrender all the protections of the Fourth Amendment by entering an automobile. Nonetheless, the state's intrusion into a particular area, whether in an automobile or elsewhere, cannot result in a Fourth Amendment violation unless the area is one in which there is a constitutionally protected reasonable expectation of privacy." The court then held that an officer did not violate the Fourth Amendment by reaching into the passenger compartment of a vehicle stopped for a traffic violation to move papers obscuring its vehicle identification number, or VIN, or VIN, reasoning that individuals do not have reasonable expectations of privacy in their VINs, as they are required by law to be located in a place ordinarily in plain view from the exterior of the automobile. Applying this and other precedents, courts have generally concluded that there is no reasonable expectation of privacy in a license plate number, and that officers may therefore run tags of a vehicle in plain view without implicating the Fourth Amendment. For instance, in the 2006 case of U.S. versus Ellison, the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, which has jurisdiction over Tennessee, determined that, quote, "So long as the officer had a right to be in a position to observe the defendant's license plate, any such observation and corresponding use of the information on the plate does not violate the Fourth Amendment. As such, a court would almost certainly find that Officer Dyer was within his constitutional authority to run Ms. Sherrard's plates, regardless of whether or not he actually smelled any marijuana."
Yo, what are you? You're gonna put.
I said put your hands on the car.
You're arresting me for
Put
what?
your hand back up.
Hey, don't you put your. Hey.
One thing I always find rather strange when in these situations is that even if you need to place someone in cuffs, why does it need to be a pounce? Do you notice that very often? Does it always require a pounce? Why not a attempt to like ease into the forced arrest? You know what I mean? Do you get what I'm saying? Because I always feel like the pouncing action, when you see it in these videos, you're sort of like getting bonus stats to their like reaction.
I'm so dizzy right now. He just banged my.
You know, even if they're like, you know, you're like, oh, she might do this, but why? Like, yeah, it just, I don't know.
Oh my God!
Shut up. I'm moving.
He's pulling my hair. Get in the car. Get in the car.
Like, what is she gonna do at this stage? Like, here's what my process is thinking. What if she runs? Who cares? What if X, Y, and Z? Who cares? Why not wait for backup? All right, she's not getting in cuffs. Okay, two people, you know, now, you know, but the pounce is like, yeah, it's just, I don't know.
Oh my God, I can't. I'm too big. Sucks to be you. Stop. Get in the car. I didn't do anything. You're a woman. You're going to treat me like this?
You're going to get tased. Get in the car.
Listen.
Get in the car.
Get in the car. I'm getting in the car. Okay, I'm in.
Although it is difficult to tell exactly what happened from the body camera footage, and Lackluster reported that the other officer's body camera footage had been quote-unquote purged, Ms. Sherrard's attorney detailed the officer's use of force against her in a federal lawsuit stemming from this encounter. According to the complaint, Officer Dyer grabbed Ms. Sherrard, slammed her face onto the partially opened window of her vehicle, banged her head onto her vehicle, and handcuffed her. The lawsuit also asserts that Officer Dyer then pushed her against the back of a police vehicle and jerked her head backward by grabbing parting her hair after she had been handcuffed. A few moments later, after Ms. Sherrard was escorted to the police vehicle, Officer Anna Simmons arrived on the scene, and Sergeant Myrick, quote-unquote, drive-stunned Ms. Sherrard with her taser as she struggled
Wait, didn't
to get
we
in the
see
vehicle.
this?
The term
Chat?
drive-stun refers to holding
I could have
a
sworn we've
taser
seen this
device
already.
against the target without firing the projectiles, which is intended to cause pain, but not
This all seems very
incapacitation.
familiar.
Despite the fact that Ms. Sherrard explicitly told the officers that she did not believe she was able to get into the back of the vehicle due to her size, Officer Simmons chose to leave this fact out of her police reports,
What?
which Lackluster obtained. And
Oh yeah, we've seen this, bro.
welcome to Audit the.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to another one. I know some of you guys haven't seen it, but like, I'm gonna sit here just like I've already seen all of this. No, I've definitely seen this. I think I saw it from a different POV, probably.
Welcome to Audit the Audit, where we sort out the who and what and the right and wrong of police interactions. This episode covers seizures, use of force, and trespassing, and is brought to us by The Day's channel. Be sure to check out the description.
The Day
below and give them the
channel.
credit that they deserve.
New.
Before we dive into the interaction, I want to give a big thanks to the sponsor of this episode, Rocket Money. Just the other day, I wasted nearly 2 hours by heading to rocketmoney.com/audit. Thanks again to Rocket Money for sponsoring today's episode. On August 20th, 2022, First Amendment Auditor Daniel Kokoska and another individual were approached by several officers with the New London Police Department, including Lieutenant Joshua Bergeson, while Mr. Kokoska was filming for his YouTube channel, The Constitution State, in the police station parking lot in New London, Connecticut. The interaction that followed was captured on officer body cameras.
Hey, can I help you? What are you guys doing?
Filming.
Or what?
Because I can. That's it.
Yeah, that's fine.
You like it.
Any reason you're filming? Don't want to answer any questions? What about you? You want to answer any questions? Or?
They heard this. They stated that those two were over their department videotaping and refused to identify themselves.
You can get off that car.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
First Amendment auditors.
After the auditors refuse to answer any questions, the officers follow them as they walk around the police department parking lot and film. As the Supreme Court explained in the 1983 case of Florida versus Royer, quote, law enforcement officers do not violate the Fourth Amendment by merely approaching an individual on the street or in another public place, by asking him if he is willing to answer some questions, by putting questions to him if the person is willing to listen, or by offering in evidence in a criminal prosecution his voluntary answers to such questions. Similarly, in the 1991 case of Florida versus Bostick, the Supreme Court stated that, now quoting, our cases make it clear that a seizure does not occur simply because a police officer approaches an individual and asks a few questions. So long as a reasonable person would feel free to disregard the police and go about his business, the encounter is consensual, and no reasonable suspicion is required. The encounter will not trigger Fourth Amendment scrutiny unless it loses its consensual nature. Rather, as the Supreme Court held in the 1991 case of California versus Hodari D., for a police encounter to constitute a Fourth Amendment seizure of the person, the officer must either apply at least minimal physical force, or the citizen must submit to an officer's show of authority to restrain their liberty. At this point in the encounter, the New London officers had taken no steps to attempt to restrain the auditor's liberty in any way, and a court would almost certainly conclude that the Fourth Amendment was not implicated by them asking the auditors questions and following them around the parking lot and observing their actions.
All right, you guys are done now.
Go.
Yeah.
For what?
I'm asking you to leave the
I have not done a single
I'm asking you to leave private property now. Get out of the lot.
not private property.
You have to leave business here?
Yes. I'm going to the lobby now.
I'm asking you, okay, you can go to the lobby, but if you're not going over to the lobby, you can leave.
I'm not doing anything.
I'm not asking you. You're now in a private lot and you're being asked to
Where's
leave
the
up
sign?
the road.
Where's the sign?
I'm telling you now.
It doesn't
Go.
matter.
Leave
No,
this.
no.
I'm not asking you.
Okay.
Get off the property.
I'm not.
Then you can end up downstairs in our lockup.
What you need to.
Okay. You're not here for police business.
I just told you I was going in the lobby
Okay.
now.
Then you can go up in the lobby.
I can go up in the lobby
Yep.
when I'm ready.
No,
There's no
you
time
can-
limit.
okay.
There's no-
I'm telling
Where
you now.
are your signs?
There are no signs. But
Exactly.
You're
So
being
I'm
given
allowed
a
to
lawful
No,
order
you're
to
not. What law?
disperse.
What law?
Disorderly conduct.
For,
You're being
that's
given.
not
Yes.
how this works.
Let's go.
If you want here, disorderly conduct. You want to call it? Let's do it. Because I'm doing nothing
Come
wrong.
on.
No,
why,
no, no.
Why you got to come out here and bust?
But you came out here. I was doing nothing wrong.
You're out here filming people's
I'm
personal
allowed
cars.
to.
Okay. Again.
Again, what?
Do you
so,
have anything
so I'm
better
allowed
to do than come here
Then
and do
thank
this?
you. I'm not going to answer
All
any more questions. I'm going to continue doing what I was doing. Touching me? You're touching me? You're touching me?
Off the property.
Stop touching me, please.
Off the
Stop
property.
touching me, please.
It doesn't. I have been asked to leave.
Listen, no. It doesn't. I don't even need police business.
Okay.
Even if I wasn't here for police business, it doesn't matter.
You're not going
this
to
is
stand out.
public
You're not
property.
going to
I can stand out.
No.
You need to commit a
asked to
crime
leave.
or be suspected of a crime. Like, how are you this high and you don't
You're
even know
now
that?
being asked
And then
to
you're putting
leave,
your
sir.
hands on me? What's
You're
wrong with
being
you?
asked to leave.
You can't trespass me for public property when I haven't broken a law.
Okay.
Come on.
Are you here for police business?
I just told you I was.
Okay. Then what is the police business you're
I
here
don't
for?
need to tell you.
Yes, you do.
No, I
You're not
don't.
here for police business.
I don't
That's
need
what
to
it
tell.
is.
All right, I'm not going to answer any more questions, and I'm standing right here until I'm ready to go inside.
And we're going to stand right here with
Go
you.
ahead.
Okay. I got all night, dude. I got till 7 o'clock in the morning.
Can you start touching me?
Can you? No.
I'm allowed to move.
Okay. And so am I.
Okay, just keep touching me.
Let's go.
Jay, take your camera out.
Let's go.
Excuse me, sir.
Do you really want to do this?
I don't care, because I haven't done
Let's
anything
go.
wrong. You're the one making yourself look like
Get
a clown.
off the property.
No.
When Mr. Kokoska refuses to leave the parking lot, Lieutenant Bergeson runs into him several times with his body and physically pushes him. We will discuss the legality of Lieutenant Bergeson's order that Mr. Kokoska leave the property later in this episode, but assuming for the sake of argument that the order was in fact lawful, a court would probably conclude that this use of force was not constitutionally excessive. In general, the Fourth Amendment authorizes officers to use force that is quote-unquote reasonable under the circumstances when conducting seizures, and, as the Supreme Court explained in the 1989 case of Graham versus Connor, quote, Fourth Amendment jurisprudence has long recognized that the right to make an arrest or investigatory stop necessarily carries with it the right to use some degree of physical coercion or threat thereof to effect it.
Wait!
This interaction does not constitute...
Hold on, it just clicked. That guy's a lieutenant? Yikes.
the typical Fourth Amendment seizure of a person, where an officer is attempting to detain or arrest an individual, as Lieutenant Bergeson was using force in an apparent attempt to get Mr. Kokoska to leave. However, the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, which has jurisdiction over Connecticut, determined in the 2015 case of Salmon versus Blesser that although the Fourth Amendment is not implicated when an officer orders an individual to leave a public area and uses quote-unquote guiding force to direct them as needed, an officer's intentional use of physical force to restrain an individual and control his movements constituted a Fourth Amendment seizure, even when the officer's ultimate purpose was to secure the individual's departure from a location rather than to prevent him from leaving. While there is certainly a strong argument under this precedent that Lieutenant Bergeson's use of force amounted to a Fourth Amendment seizure, even if a court did conclude that the Fourth Amendment was implicated, it is likely that it would also determine that the seizure was reasonable if the order to leave the property was lawful. However, if the order was unlawful, it is more likely that a court would conclude that this use of force was excessive.
You don't need to be on
If you had a reason and you could really arrest me, you already would have done it.
Saturday, and I don't feel like leaving me downstairs all weekend. I really don't.
I don't believe that.
What is your police business?
I'm doing what I need to do.
Okay.
So
if you go near a personal car,
I'll go near whatever.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you, you're wrong. I can record those cars. I can record any car in this parking lot.
If I catch you touching a vehicle or trying to open a door, I'm going to arrest you.
Now it goes to that. Did you see me do that before you touched me and did all that?
Catch you doing it.
Did you see me?
do it?
That's what you keep saying, but you're out here.
Damn.
If you need something, come up into the lobby and deal with it.
I'll be out there when I'm ready.
We're all set.
Thank you.
Lieutenant Bergeson tells Mr. Kokoska that if he touches any vehicle or tries to open the doors, he will be arrested. In general, Connecticut does not criminalize merely touching another individual's property if there is no damage or threat of damage. For example, both the first and second degree criminal mischief statutes found in sections 53A-115 and 53A-116 of the Connecticut General Statutes state that an individual is guilty of criminal mischief when, now quoting, with intent to cause damage to tangible property of another and having no reasonable ground to believe that such person has a right to do so, such person damages tangible property of another. Likewise, the offense of third-degree criminal mischief, found in section 53A-117 of the General Statutes, requires either intentionally or recklessly damaging tangible property of another, or tampering with tangible property of another, and thereby causing such property to be placed in danger of damage. According to the jury instructions for this offense, to tamper with property means to quote-unquote physically interfere with it. Accordingly, while touching a vehicle or trying to open a door could constitute tampering under the criminal mischief statute, such actions would typically not place the property in danger of damage, unless the door was opened haphazardly or the touching was particularly forceful. However, if Mr. Kokoska opened or attempted to open the door of a vehicle, it is likely that he could be lawfully arrested on probable cause of burglary, criminal trespass, or at the very least, attempted burglary or criminal trespass. Under section 53A-103 of the the Connecticut General Statutes, quote, a person is guilty of burglary in the 3rd degree when he enters or remains unlawfully in a building with intent to commit a crime therein. And under Section 53A-108, quote, a person is guilty of criminal trespass in the 2nd degree when, knowing that such person is not licensed or privileged to do so, such person enters or remains in a building. Although a vehicle would not be included in the typical understanding of what constitutes a building, Section 53A-100 of the General Statutes expands.
I can explain. Chat, give me a 1 if you're EU.
In these statutes,
give me a 2 if you're NA.
Therefore,
EU plus
if
UK.
the auditors open the doors to any of the vehicles and enter
1,
any
2,
part of their bodies
if you're
inside, the officers would likely have probable cause to arrest
I'll
them
explain.
for trespass or burglary.
Wow,
even
we
if
have
the
a
auditors
lot
did
of
not
EU
enter the
audience.
vehicle in any way and simply opened or tried
That's
to open
crazy.
a door. Section 53A-49 of the General Statute states that, quote, a person is guilty of an attempt to commit a crime if acting with the kind of mental state required for commission of the crime.
So I should explain this because I don't know if like it's the same thing in you know, in like if you guys know this. So I'll explain it. So first off, let me preface this by saying I don't agree with all First Amendment auditors. I think some of them are more content bro than anything else, right? There's a, but what a First Amendment auditor does is they have the right to the First Amendment. And the First Amendment isn't just freedom of speech, but also the freedom of press, right? So what freedom of press means is that press is like loosely defined, right? It doesn't mean you need to work for ABC, NBC. You as a citizen can document and report everything. And inherently film and photography can be considered press, right? Taking a photo, documenting, because you don't know what you're going to end up ultimately producing. And so what First Amendment auditors do is that they're auditing their ability to exercise their freedom of press. And so they'll take cameras, they'll go on sidewalks and like record in a public space. They'll go to government buildings, etc. But the thing is, First Amendment auditors on YouTube is a bit of a mixed bag. What do I mean by a mixed bag? There's going to be some who go to like the post office and they record there. There'll be some that will go on the sidewalk and they'll record there. Some with the intention to see if whether the government agents, like people working at the post office, police officers, maybe those that work at town halls, what their reaction is, and if they do not realize that what is taking place, if they believe that what is taking place is legal, they'll use it as a educational piece or a educational piece for the police officers once they arrive. The problem comes into play, and you'll hear this a lot when it comes to me, is intention. Intention to me matters for everything. It's why even when I talked about this CoffeeZilla thing, I wasn't comfortable watching it, because to me, there was too much intention for something else going on in that video right off the first few minutes. And knowing the subject matter, I was just like, I don't want to propagate even potentially half-truths or something that is meant for a good cause when it's clear that the cause, the message may be okay, but this is a money video, you know? And the same applies in this instance, is that some auditors go out of their way to be very harassing and very baity. There's a couple, and it's been popping off in some places where, yes, can they record? Sure, but they skirt so close to the line that they're actually annoying and bothering people. It's one thing to like have a camera in a post office, right? But if you're now taking that camera and you're following around someone that's like uncomfortable and they're not bothering you, well, now you're just kind of being a fucking asshole, right? Just as much I can walk up to like, you know, go down the street and start saying fucked up shit. And you'd be like, that's my right. You're still kind of being a fucking asshole, right? And in this particular case, I don't think what they did actually crosses that line.
Right to do.
They're checking, they're walking around, they're like, you know, the vehicle. This is borderline Beatty, right? It's borderline Beatty that if someone's going around like cameraing police cars, because even if it's legal, like it's still fucking sketch. It's still a little sketch. I don't think it's that big of a deal ultimately, but yeah, there you go. First Amendment auditing. It happens in America. I'm sort of on that. What's happening here for me is a bit in the gray zone. It's like, okay, cool. They're filming. Fine. Honestly, not the end of the world. They could be doing a story on like, is someone's shit dirty? But definitely, I don't think it's out of the ordinary for police to be like, what are you doing? Like, and observing. I don't think they're wasting taxpayer money, quite frankly. What I do think where it crosses the line, though, for the police is the attitude of this lieutenant. But I don't know. For me, it's kind of a case-by-case basis. I don't think these guys are actually out of line at all, but yeah, there you go.
Would be a bit of a stretch.
You're a loser. You are a loser.
Go find something better to do with your life.
Like, for example, I'll give you an example, right? Like, I've seen auditors, like, the moment, like, a cop comes by and they're like, you know, hey, what are you doing there? Like, is everything good? Like, whatever. And then the auditor will be like, fuck you, pig. Yo, wasting our taxpayer money. Fuck those people. I don't like those auditors. Why do I not like them? Because a cop is still a person, right? And I personally, if there's like a weird car that's going around my neighborhood that's normally not around, and they're stopping on the road and like fucking photographing shit or whatever, I want that cop to be like, hey guys, you good? Do you live in this area? You know what I mean? Because like, I don't know about you, but like, I want that motherfucker, you know, or like, you know, these cops might be like, not this guy, but like in general, like, you get what I'm saying? When like the auditors start like generalizing and start shitting on cops just because they're like, yo, what's going on? You good? Like, you know what I mean? Fuck that. You know what I mean? It's like, it's kind of, because at the end of the day, it's very, for me, not a, for me, some of these videos tend to, some First Amendment auditor videos definitely touch a certain line where, yes, they have the right, but they're so close to like the behavior of someone that's criminal that, yeah, I'd rather the cop check it out. But at the same time, the cop needs to know how to handle it too, right?
Some tough guy, you clown.
What a waste of time.
You know, now leave him. After you already touched me, loser. That's all you do.
There's some shit cops out here, but it doesn't make you a good person by just, you know, saying all cops are shit and pigs and stuff like that. In fact, it's those very same people that if someone breaks into their house, very same people, or if they get rear-ended, it's the same people, you know, who are going to be calling the cops for help. I mean, if something happens to them where they need the police, that they normally would need the police, you think they're going to go seek justice themselves? Hell no, dude.
Right now. What are you going to do?
Long Island Audit is a really good one. There's a bunch of, I'm going to show you, actually, after this, I'm going to show you an example of another good channel. And then I'm going to show you an example of a bad channel, but I don't remember what that other bad channel's name is because I stopped watching it.
Sadowski 688.
Oh, can I help you? Yeah, you're the supervisor? One of them, yeah. So I was outside, walking through the parking lot, taping. Your officers, 3 of them came out. Supervisors started pushing me around, giving out lawful orders. Kept trying to tell me I'm trespassing and I'm disorderly when I wasn't doing anything.
Well, it's a lawful order.
Yeah, if you're doing it.
Well, if you read the statute for trespass first, after giving a lawful order,
Yeah, you have to be committing a crime.
regardless if it's posted or not.
No, but you have to be committing a crime to be trespassing on public property.
All right. Well, I'm not going to argue with you on that.
Oh.
Sergeant Linderson argues that the trespass statute requires individuals to leave property after they are given a lawful order to do so, regardless of whether there are no trespassing signs posted. And Mr. Kokoska claims that the officers cannot trespass him from public property unless he has broken the law. Under Section 53A-107 of the Connecticut General Statutes, an individual commits first-degree criminal trespass when, quote, knowing that such person is not licensed or privileged to do so, such person enters...
Wait, in California, cops can't ask you, do you know why I pulled you over? They have to state why now. That is a really good change. Low key, that's a very good change because there is nothing that audits a police officer's. So, by the way, I hope this isn't bothering you guys when I'm pausing and reading something in chat and like bringing it up, even though it's not direct. It's only somewhat related. A police officer requires reasonable suspicion in order to make a detainment, right? And this is something that I normally do when I was training cadets on, when I'm playing cop. Is I'll ask, and I pin on this, is you as the officer, upon detainment, need to be able to articulate what crime specifically you are detaining them for, and be able to articulate how you arrived at the conclusion, how you arrived at the suspicion. And if you're unable to do that, then the detainment is unlawful. You cannot have a post facto suspicion based on new evidence. So in other words, if you go and approach someone, and this is how you probably, some of you guys may have heard this example, is when I say, if you got a phone call at a convenience store and upon arriving, there's only one individual standing there and behind them is graffiti, and the phone call was just, there's someone being weird and suspicious at the gas station. Upon arrival, if you see someone standing there and there's graffiti there, right? And you approach them and they say, we're not interested in talking to you. And you then detain them. You're like, well, you need to stay here. At that, you are now being detained. Well, unless in that very moment you can say, well, I suspected them of committing this thing, that's unlawful. If now let's go forward and you said that cop was like, you're being detained for, you're being detained, you cannot leave. And then the cop starts like surveying the scene and like notices, oh, there's paint over here. Wait a minute, did he graffiti this? Oh, this is fresh paint. Oh, interesting. There's a fresh can here. Okay, sir, let me look at your fingers. Oh, wait, there's paint on your hands. Okay, well, you're under arrest for what is it called? For, oh my God. For, what's the word? Oh my God. For vandalism. Thank you. That is actually illegal. Because at the point you now have come to now you've hit that RS, right? And potentially now PC. You didn't actually fucking know at the point you told them they can't leave that he even committed a crime yet. And so in that same notion, there's no audit trail of that. When the cop goes and writes their report, they can simply say, well, I approached an individual after a phone call and I noticed there was some wet paint in the back and there's a spray can by them and his hands had some of the residue from the paint can. They could say that, and there's nothing that like, I mean, obviously now there's body cam, right? But like there's a lot of questions, right, without that body cam footage. But like in a traffic stop, it's a similar notion, right? In that, let's say you pull someone over, and the first interaction that's documented on the body cam and even in verbalization is, do you know why I pulled you over today? There's no documentation at all as to what that officer's conclusion was, what the actual reason was. So you're opening them up to say something and incriminate themselves, right? And they could be like, oh, well, I was speeding. Well, guess what? Maybe the cop didn't actually get a radar lock, but now they know they were speeding, right? You get what I'm saying? Does that make sense? There's no documentation of it. So anyways, I think that's great. Because there's no documentation, the cop can literally let the person who's already detained tell you the reason, and then the cop can just be like, oh yeah, I did notice that.
Or remains in a building or any other premises after an order to leave or not to enter personally communicated to such
I don't think it's true that cops are never your friend. I can't say that reasonably when I was young, was let go. I've had really good experiences with most police officers, exceptionally good experiences. I think cops are there to do their job and to arrest you when possible. And I think there's a lot of really great cops out there. I think there's like, it's important not to say, I don't think it's good to say cops are never your friend. I think it's important to know your rights and not mention things and how to, properly and be professional with them back. And if a said cop starts to extend, beyond reasonability, then that's when you're like, I'd rather not say. You know what I mean?
The officers cannot trespass him from public property unless he has broken
the law.
Yeah,
cops are your friend when they come in, are making sure there's not like fucking when they're cleaning up the streets, right? If it wasn't for cops, if it wasn't for cops, I can guarantee every city you guys are in would be significantly worse off. You would be in fear of getting your house broken into, all these kind of things. They are your friend in that way, but when they are approaching you and you are detained, you need to be cautious, right?
Section 53A-107
they can now be friends but allies. Fair enough.
An individual commits first-degree criminal trespass when, quote, knowing that such person is not licensed or privileged to do so. Such person enters or remains in a building or any other premises after an order to leave or not to enter personally communicated to such person by the owner of the premises or other authorized person. As such, when an order to leave is personally communicated to an individual by an authorized person, posted no trespassing signs are not required. And although Section 53A-109 states that, quote, a person is guilty of criminal trespass in the third degree when such person enters or remains in premises which are posted in a manner prescribed by law or reasonably likely to come to the attention of intruders, this statute allows for individuals to be convicted of trespassing based solely on their decision to ignore the no trespassing signs, but does not create a requirement of posting to sustain any trespassing charges, such as when an order to leave has been personally communicated. Now, while it is clear that Mr. Kokoska received an order to leave from an authorized person, he could potentially have a defense to any trespassing charges under Section 53A-110 of the Connecticut General Statutes, which states that, now quoting, it shall be an affirmative defense to prosecution for criminal trespass that the premises, at the time of the entry or remaining, were open to the public, and the actor complied with all lawful conditions imposed on access to or remaining in the premises. Although there is limited case law interpreting this statute, Mr. Kokoska would have a strong argument that he had not violated a lawful condition to remain on the property, as he was simply engaging in protected First Amendment activity, and that his license to be in the parking lot, which appeared to be held open to the public, could not be extinguished simply because an officer ordered him to leave for arbitrary reasons. Still, Mr. Kokoska's contention that he cannot be trespassed from public property unless he has broken the law is not universally accurate, particularly in situations where the government property in question is not held open for public use. As we have discussed many times on ATA, DPA, government ownership or operation of property does not automatically grant unrestricted access to that property to all members of the public at all times. While certain public properties may indeed be open to the public, the government entity that owns or oversees the property retains the authority to impose restrictions on specific areas. For instance, in the 1966 case of Adderley versus Florida, the Supreme Court upheld trespassing convictions against a group of protesters who refused to leave the premises of a county jail after the sheriff ordered them to do so. In concluding that the convictions did not violate the demonstrators' rights of free speech, assembly, petition, due process of law, and equal protection of the laws, the court reasoned that, quote, the state, no less than a private owner of property, has power to preserve the property under its control for the use to which it is lawfully dedicated, and that, now quoting again, the United States Constitution does not forbid a state to control the use of its own property for its own lawful, non-discriminatory purpose. However, it is important to note that the arrestees in the Adderley case were on a jail driveway that was not normally used by the public, whereas the police department parking lot here appears to be held open for public use, and Mr. Kokoska would have a viable defense if he had been charged with trespassing.
You're just like the rest of them. I need 3 complaint forms, and how do I request that body cam footage?
Have to go do an FOI.
Through records?
Hmm?
Okay, so how do I get the complaints?
You want a complaint form? How many?
No, 3.
3 complaint. But there's 2 of you. Well, you can put more than one officer on a form. Is that what you're asking?
No, I want to put. I do them individual.
So you want 4?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, here you go.
Can I get your name, badge number?
Yeah, right there. So your license is fine.
Following Mr. Kokoska's complaint, the New London Police Department conducted an internal investigation and found that Lieutenant Bergeson was in violation of department policies regarding respect and courtesy, conduct unbecoming of an officer, and use of force reporting. And on March 6, 2023, Lieutenant Bergeson was suspended without pay for 8 days for 2 separate complaints and ordered to attend, quote-unquote, designated retraining. The complaint was also investigated by state police, who submitted a report to the New London County State's Attorney's Office, which determined that there were no violations of any criminal laws. On March 27, 2023, the New London Police Department placed Lieutenant Bergeson's brother, Captain Todd Bergeson, on paid administrative leave while an unrelated investigation was conducted into his quote-unquote use of leave time and testimony regarding such use. Captain Bergeson returned to work in mid-June after the investigation determined that he had technically violated policy by improperly altering a report of his time when he noticed some errors in the records, but that he did not provide untruthful testimony about his work hours or change his time records in an intentionally false or malicious manner or for an improper purpose. It should be noted that the incident involving Mr. Kokoska is not the first time Lieutenant Bergeson has faced allegations involving the use of force. In 2016, a 21-year-old college student alleged that he was handcuffed, forced to the ground, threatened with mace, and repeatedly kneed in the head and kicked in the back while attempting to provide officers, including Lieutenant Bergeson, with information regarding a domestic violence situation involving his neighbors. The officers claimed that the student was interfering and, quote-unquote, exacerbating the situation, and that he failed to comply with several directives to keep
fucking Todd doing Todd. That's
Bergeson
crazy.
Was also fired in 2013 for an alleged beating and pepper spraying incident. However, the police union filed a complaint for wrongful termination, and the case was settled. Despite these incidents, Lieutenant Bergeson was promoted to detective in 2017. Lieutenant Bergeson's father worked for the New London Police Department for 21 years until his passing, and Lieutenant Bergeson's uncle, Gary Bergeson, worked as a supernumerary officer in New London. Lieutenant Bergeson has also received numerous letters of accommodation throughout his career, has assisted instructors at the police academy teaching new recruits, and now serves as the local police union president. Overall, Lieutenant Bergeson gets an F for maintaining a hostile and unprofessional demeanor throughout the encounter, interfering with Mr. Kokoska's First Amendment right to film in public, and using unnecessary and potentially unlawful force against Mr. Kokoska. Even looking at this interaction from a common sense perspective rather than a legal one, it is challenging to understand why Lieutenant Bergeson was so bothered by Mr. Kokoska filming in the parking lot, and what harm he believed he was preventing by trying to force Mr. Kokoska to leave. It would have been much more logical for Lieutenant Bergeson to simply allow Mr. Kokoska to continue to film, with an officer observing if he truly had safety or property concerns, rather than attempt to intervene and risk violating Mr. Kokoska's constitutional rights. Instead, Lieutenant Bergeson chose to interfere, and likely violated the Constitution and earned himself a suspension while doing so. Mr. Kokoska gets an A, because although his contention that individuals cannot be removed from public property if they have not violated the law did not entirely reflect all of the nuances of the law regarding government property, he overall demonstrated a solid understanding of his constitutional rights, and immediately took action by filing a complaint against Lieutenant Bergeson and the other officers involved in this incident. Mr. Kokoska did choose to use some less than respectful language in his encounter with the New London officers, but he was well within his First Amendment rights to do so. Likewise, while an 8-day unpaid suspension may be less discipline than Mr. Kokoska hoped for, it is far more than many officers receive for their misconduct, and when combined with the media attention given to this encounter, I believe that Mr. Kokoska's work as an auditor has had an impact. I commend Mr. Kokoska for his strong commitment to defending his First Amendment rights and exposing law enforcement officers who interfere with those liberties. Let us know if there is an interaction or legal topic that you would like us to discuss in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out my second channel for even more police interaction content.